Listen closely. Not to the noise around you. Not to the opinions. Not to the rumors. To this. You? Yeah. Bull. You, the one who still doesn't fully realize what you're capable of yet. Civilized people. Welcome to the chapter of your life where everyone thought they had you figured out. Bull. Where they believed they had your limits memorized. Where they were confident you'd never step outside the box they placed you in. They assumed you'd stay exactly where they left you. Same behavior, same reactions, same patience, people, same silence. They wrote you into their story as a side character, someone useful, predictable, controllable. And then behind your back, people, they gathered in places you were never invited to and discussed your potential like it was already capped. Won't do anything? She's too emotional, thou. They don't have it in them. They'll calm down. They always forgive. They spoke about your future as if it belonged to them. And the funniest part, not once did they imagine the version of you listening right now. Because this version doesn't exist in their calculations. This version is a malfunction in their system. Let's slow this down because you need to understand what really happened. This wasn't random. This wasn't accidental. This wasn't people just mess up sometimes. This was intentional, calculated, observed, timed. They studied you quietly. They memorized your patterns. They paid attention to your fears, your doubts, your soft spots, like students preparing for a final exam. They noticed your kindness and labeled it weakness. They saw how you hesitate before speaking up and marked it down. They watched how you try to understand everyone and turned that empathy into leverage. They knew where you'd pause. They knew where you'd overthink. They knew you'd give the benefit of the doubt, even when your instincts were screaming. So they used that. You weren't imagining things. You weren't being dramatic. You weren't too sensitive. The energy felt off because the intentions were off. They weren't busy. They weren't confused. They weren't bad at communication. They were strategic. Ever notice how they only reached out when they needed something? Hey, how are you? You good? Just checking in. No, they weren't checking on you. They were checking your temperature. They needed updates. They needed to know how aware you were becoming. Bull. They needed to track your emotional state like a stock price. Too confident, they'd subtly humble you. Too happy, they'd remind you of something painful. Got an idea, they'd dismiss it, then use it somewhere else. And behind closed doors, they reassured each other. Relax, they'll forgive. They won't leave. They need us more than we need them. That was the plan. Drain you. Stretch your loyalty, push your limits. And when you finally cracked, blame you for breaking people. But here's where everything shifted. You didn't wake up one day angry. You woke up aware. It happened quietly, moment by moment, tone by tone, look by look, silence by silence. You started replaying conversations. You noticed how certain interactions always left you feeling smaller. You remembered the jokes that cut just a little too deep, the laughter that felt wrong, the pauses that said more than words. You went back through old messages. You remembered things you once brushed off. And something clicked. Not rage, not revenge. Clarity, cold, calm, precise. Oh, so this is what it is. That's when the old version of you started dying. Quietly. Internally, no dramatic explosion, no announcement, just a switch flipping. And then you did something they never expected. You stopped explaining yourself. You stopped oversharing. You stopped sending paragraphs to people who never intended to understand you. You stopped giving blueprints of your soul to people who were only there to tear it down. You pulled your energy back so fast it felt violent. You started replying slower. You started saying no. Without justifying it, you looked at your phone and realized, I don't actually owe you anything. You didn't damage their property. You didn't scream. You didn't expose them. You did something far worse. You removed access. You didn't burn their house down. You burned the bridge and walked away without looking back. And what really shook them, you didn't make a speech about it. No dramatic post. No "I'm healing" announcement. No public call out. You simply changed your behavior. That's the most terrifying form of power. Because now they don't know. Do you know? Did someone tell you? Did you see the screenshots? Are you mad? Are you planning something? You turned their own paranoia into punishment. Now they're the ones checking who viewed their story. They're the ones asking mutuals, have they said anything? They're the ones uneasy in silence. They wanted you drowning in anxiety. Now they're swimming in it. But this goes deeper. They didn't just plan to betray you. They planned for you to stay broken afterward. That was the real objective. They wanted their voice to live in your head even after they were gone. That voice that whispers, maybe I'm too much. Maybe I'm the problem. Maybe no one really stays. Maybe I'm hard to love. That voice isn't yours. It's theirs. It's every eye roll, every dismissive comment. People, every moment they made you feel small for having needs. They wanted a version of themselves installed in your mind, keeping you controlled even in their absence, and for a while. It worked. You searched for closure. You replayed everything. You stalked their pages. You compared yourself. You cried alone at night wondering why you weren't enough. But then you realized something that changed everything. Their rejection wasn't a measure of your worth. People. It was a confession of their limitations. They didn't walk away because you were too broken. They walked away because you were too real, too aware, too big for the small world they needed to control. And that's when the question changed, not why did they do this to me? But why did I allow it for so long? That question made you dangerous. Because now you weren't studying their behavior. You were studying your patterns, your childhood, your conditioning, what you were taught love was supposed to feel like. You realized, I was trained to doubt myself. I was taught to be grateful for crumbs. I was conditioned to believe my needs were too much. And once you see that, you cannot unsee it. This is what they plan behind your back. You stay confused, you chase, you apologize, you shrink, you accept less and call it loyalty. But instead, you chose yourself, Not the cute version. Not the quote posting version. The real one. The one where your hands shake while blocking numbers. The one where healing feels like withdrawal. The one where you sit alone because you cut off something you were addicted to. You chose solitude over poison. And in that silence, after you chose solitude over poison, something strange happened. Nothing exploded. Nothing magically healed overnight. No triumphant music played in the background. What came instead was withdrawal. Because people don't talk about this part. They talk about healing like it's pretty. Like it's aesthetic. Like it's candles, affirmations, and instant clarity. But real healing feels empty before it feels empowering. You woke up some mornings with a hollow pressure in your chest. Civilized people, your brain still reached for its old habits on autopilot. Check if they texted, check their story, check if they moved on. Your hand hovered over your phone without you even realizing it, like muscle memory. And then you stopped. That tiny pause, the moment your hand froze and dropped back down. That wasn't weakness. That was rewiring. That was your nervous system learning a new language. You were teaching your brain, we don't feed that addiction anymore. And it felt uncomfortable, quiet, almost lonely, because you used to get dopamine from decoding their behavior, from interpreting their posts, from trying to understand where you stood. Now there was silence. And inside that silence, a question appeared for the first time. What if I used this energy on myself, people? So you did slowly, awkwardly, imperfectly. You drank more water instead of doom scrolling. You went for walks instead of checking their page. People, you unfollowed accounts that kept you stuck in comparison. You deleted drafts of messages you were never supposed to send. You cleaned your space. You threw away things tied to memories that no longer deserved residency. Not because you were erasing the past, but because you were reclaiming your environment. You stopped living in a museum of old pain. Every drawer you cleared, every chat you archived, every picture you moved. It was subconscious surgery. And something else shifted too, your circle. People felt the change before you ever said a word. Some got uncomfortable. The ones who only liked you when you were confused. The ones who enjoyed being the stable one while you were breaking. The ones who fed off your vulnerability without ever protecting it. Civilized people. They didn't know what to do with this grounded version of you. You started noticing things you used to excuse. The friends who never defended you. The ones who stayed silent while others talked about you. The ones who came back acting neutral, calling it peace. You finally saw it clearly. Silence isn't always maturity. Sometimes it's complicity. And that changed how you moved. You stopped trauma dumping in unsafe spaces. You stopped trusting people because they'd been around a long time. Longevity and loyalty are not the same thing. That realization alone upgraded your entire life. Then something else happened. New people showed up, charming, well-spoken, relatable. They mirrored your pain. They told you, I've never told anyone this before. They said, I'm not like the others. Old you would have handed them the keys immediately. This version of you. You paused. You watched how they reacted when you said no. You watched how they handled boundaries. You noticed whether they respected distance or tried to bypass it. You didn't just listen to how they talked about others. You paid attention to how they talked. Were they always the victim? Did every ex become crazy? Did they claim to hate drama while constantly being surrounded by it? You weren't paranoid. You were observant. Your heart was no longer a free trial. Your standards weren't walls, they were filters. And then came one of the most important moments in this transformation. The fantasy broke. You know that idealized version of them you kept replaying. The highlight reel, the good moments looped on repeat. One day, maybe in the shower, maybe on a bus, maybe while staring at the ceiling, your brain pulled up a different memory. One you'd ignored before. The way they smiled at their phone right after you opened up. The way their tone shifted when certain people entered the room. The way they always had excuses prepared in advance. And this time, you didn't romanticize it. You didn't reframe it, you named it. Not mysterious, disrespectful. Not confused, calculated. Not emotionally unavailable, emotionally irresponsible. That was the moment empowerment stopped being aesthetic and became real. You weren't just consuming motivational content anymore. You were reprogramming. You caught yourself mid-thought. What if they never come back? And a quieter, stronger voice answered. What if they do, and I don't even want them anymore? That question changed everything. Because suddenly, the goal wasn't them realizing your worth. The goal was you never forgetting it again. You stopped fantasizing about apologies. You stopped waiting for closure. You realized the grand prize wasn't reconciliation. The grand prize was freedom. Not needing them. Not craving explanation. Not wanting revenge. Just being unavailable for chaos. And that's when the real power settled in. Not loud, not flashy. Stable. Your days started feeling different. Still painful sometimes, but cleaner. You still had waves. Still had moments where memories surfaced. But now you didn't drown in them. You observed them. You understood that healing isn't about never thinking of them again. It's about thinking of them and choosing yourself anyway. Your energy changed. Not desperate, not reactive, intentional. People started noticing. You seem different. You're acting brand new. You think you're better than everyone now. No, you just stopped being worse for anyone. Your eyes got sharper, your boundaries colder, your standards clearer. Nice wasn't enough anymore. Consistency became the baseline. Respect became non-negotiable. You weren't starving for validation. So compliments didn't control you. You weren't chasing rooms. You were the room. And somewhere, in those same private chats, those same circles, your name still came up. They changed. Well, they're distant now. They act brand new after everything. Of course you did. What did they think growth looked like? You were always supposed to become this. Someone the old you would admire, and the old them would fear. Here's the part they never planned for. You didn't seek revenge. You became it. Your peace is revenge. Your self-respect is revenge. Your healing is revenge. Your silence is revenge. They expected you to stay broken, to post sad quotes, to spiral publicly, to chase. Instead, when people asked what happened, you shrugged. I outgrew it. Do you understand how ruthless that is? You didn't make them a villain. You didn't center them in your story. You filed them under no longer relevant to the plot. This wasn't one moment. This wasn't one conversation. This was a collection of choices. You chose to stop explaining your worth. You chose to listen to your gut early. You chose to cut access quietly. You chose to let people misunderstand you. You chose to invest in yourself the way you once invested in people who wouldn't show up. They planned for you to stay small. You chose to become a problem. And now, here you are. On the other side, a betrayal meant to destroy you. Still standing, still breathing, sharper, calmer, more dangerous. You're not paranoid, you're wise. You're not cold, you're guarded. You're not bitter. You're done negotiating your value. They thought they were writing your ending. They were writing your origin story. And the best part, they still haven't seen what you do next. Because most people think the story ends at the hurt. They imagine you folded on the floor, checking their page, replaying words, spiraling. What they never pictured was this: you in that same darkness, eyes swollen, hands shaking, and instead of texting them, you open a notebook, you open a plan, you open your future, and without telling anyone, you decide, I'm done being the one who loses myself every time someone can't handle me. That thought, that's what changes everything. Because when you stop trying to prove your worth to people who couldn't recognize it, you take your power back. And once you do, there's no going back.